Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 132. Let's talk about food noise. Food noise is, for me, the big fad of 2025. It is being used to push weight loss medications big time to people that don't need them. So I had a new client join this week, and she's lost 60 pounds using Mounjaro. She's came off it, and the food noise has returned, the cravings have returned, the hunger has returned. All the reasons why she had weight to lose in the first place have returned, because she didn't resolve them. The good news is, though, because she's had a run at weight loss, and this is where these kind of indirect effects happen with weight loss medications. Like, people can feel like the vast majority of people, all the studies so far show that the vast majority of people that take weight loss medication regain the weight within 12 months, right? For the reasons that I just mentioned. People do not address the reasons why they had weight to lose in the first place. Okay, they take a medication which helps switch off a lot of that. Because that's all switched off, it then allows them to lose weight. And then they come off the medication because they're either concerned that we just do not have enough data to know what the long-term impacts are, or it's the expense, or they just don't like the idea of taking medication all the time when they don't need to. Whatever the reasons are, they come off it. And all that stuff comes back. Now, there are some kind of positive knock-on effects where, so imagine someone's been trying to lose weight for a long time, they get so far and they really struggle and they give up. But they take this medication and they get farther than they've ever been before. And that kind of flicks a switch in the brain where it's like, my goodness, I've never been this far before, I've never gotten this far before, this makes me not want to give up. This makes me want to keep trying and keep going. So there's many instances. So, even though the data shows us that most people are putting on all the weight they lost and or more, there are many instances where there's a kind of positive mental benefit where someone's like, oh, I quite like being this weight, or this, I've never got to this weight before, I've never lost this much in one go before. I feel quite motivated to keep going. And I've been working with a lot of those people. They've gotten so far. Like, I've had many people come in to the Monroe Method who took the medication, lost the weight, put it all back on again, and now they've realised, I need to do this properly, otherwise I'm going to be doing this forever. And then there are people like this person who joined this week, who, like, I've had many people who are just weaning themselves off the medication, preparing to come off it, already off it, who have lost a significant amount of weight, and they basically, now they want to do it the right way. They don't want to go back to where they were. And like I said, this person said, yep, the food noise has come back and this has come back. However, it feels a little easier to ignore now. Now, there could be any number of reasons for this, but for me, it's mostly mental, right? It's easier not to give in to the food noise because they're like, Christ, I've lost 60 pounds. I don't want to put any of that back on. I quite like being this weight. I've lost a significant amount of weight. I've bought a whole new wardrobe, but I don't really want to go back to where I was. And that makes it easier to forget about food noise. I mean, think about it, right? If temptation is a word that I'm going to talk about at some point as well, but imagine you are skint, right? If you don't know what that is, that might be a colloquial term. Skint, not a lot of money, end of the month, not much in the bank, enough to buy food, that's about it, waiting for payday, skint. So imagine you are skint, you don't have a lot of money, and you see something that you really want to buy. It's easier to say no to that thing when you don't have the money to buy it. However, it is far easier to say yes to that thing when you've just been paid. So, yeah, let's not go down the temptation route. Let's try and keep this on topic. Because it's a little bit like this, right? It's easier to say yes to the thing when you're still at a weight that you're unhappy with, when you've not got as far as you wanted, compared to I've lost 60 pounds, I'm fitting into this, fitting into that. It feels easier to say no. Anyway. So, food noise. Food noise is the big faddy term of 2025 because it's so relatable. People, there's a way that you can Google trends and you can Google... I did this the other day, right? I Googled narcissist as an experiment for something. We'll not get into that. I Googled narcissist, and when the term comes up on Google, it shows its use. So it's like it wasn't a word until, I don't know, like 2016 or something, 2013, I don't know. And then you see its use on the little line graph just rocketing up. I think food noise in 2025, I think if you looked at a trend for that word, that would rocket up. Because what is food noise? Thinking about food all the time. Thinking about your next meal, planning your next snack, eating your breakfast while already planning your lunch. Thinking about food all the time. Food noise. Now, there are many people who have food noise for valid reasons. And then there are people who have food noise for invalid reasons. Valid reasons being, well, imagine someone with obesity. And for anyone listening, obesity who doesn't know, obesity is not just someone being overweight. Obesity is a genetic disorder. It's a disease where certain people don't have the same mechanisms that otherwise healthy people have. They don't have the same hunger regulation. They don't have the same appetite regulation. They are hungry more often. They generally tend not to feel, they don't experience fullness in the same way that others might. And that's something that drives a lot of their overeating. They experience a lot of food noise as a result of that. Then there's what I would call invalid food noise, right? And this is what I want to talk about. Invalid food noise is self-created. And this is something, this isn't new for me because this is what I've been dealing with ever since I started the Monroe Method way back in 2018. It is the same old story except we now have a new term for it. Just like skipping breakfast used to be called skipping breakfast until somebody decided we're going to call it intermittent fasting and write books about it and sell diets around it. But food noise has always been there. It's just another term for craving, essentially. But just to kind of give you some insight, right? When people come into the Monroe Method and they work through the first 7 days, right? On day 5, I get them to track their diet. So not diet, but like track what they eat in a day. Their general day-to-day diet. Now, it often doesn't work like that because they've already been listening to me through the course for 10, 15 minutes a day. They're already starting to feel better. They're already starting to feel more positive. And that's already starting to influence their eating habits. It's very rare that I get to see someone's true daily eating when we get to days 5 and 6. And they do their 2 days of tracking for me, right? And then on day 7, they come, they fill in a form. I find out all their details so I can set up their calories and macros. And they share their 2 days of eating. Now, here is something that, I don't know, 90 to 95% of people have in common, and you can read a lot into this and learn a lot from it. 90 to 95% of people who have weight to lose have this thing in common. Their fibre intakes are through the floor. They do not eat enough fruit. They do not eat enough vegetables. They don't eat enough of anything with fibre in it. Fruit, veg, nuts, seeds, legumes, cereals, etc., etc. They're not eating enough fibre. Now, that's not a coincidence that, it's just an accident. It's just an accident that the vast majority of people who have weight to lose and are carrying higher levels of weight don't eat any fruits and vegetables. There's a direct link there. But we'll get into that another day. The point here is, when I sit and look at most people's diet, protein tends not to be as much of an issue. It was actually recently, I saw the lowest protein intake I have ever seen in my life. Somebody eating 20 grams a day. Like, that's scary, scary number. Scarily low figure. Malnutrition, protein deficiency territory. But for the most part, the vast majority of people are getting at least barely enough protein. Not to the point where I would think it was like dramatically or worryingly low. The vast majority of people are doing okay. They're not eating enough. They're not eating the minimum levels that they want, but they're doing all right. Did I say that they want? I meant that they need, but they're doing okay. So for the most part, people who come to work with me, it's like, yeah, we're almost there with protein. We just really need like 20, 30 extra grams a day. There is a portion of people who need they're maybe getting half their recommended intake, but it's nowhere near as bad as fibre. The vast majority of people who come to me are getting single figures each day in fibre. So for some context, 30 to 50 grams a day of fibre is considered a healthy range of fibre in adults. Once we get to 80 grams a day, that's where we see the point of diminishing returns, and there's really no need to be going that high. But 30 to 50 grams a day, healthy level in adults. The vast majority of people I work with are getting between something like 5 to 12 grams a day. And just to give more context, the recommended level for 2 to 5 year old children is 15 plus grams per day. Now, if you look at the statistics in the UK, the average intake in adults, I think it's different for male and female. It's 13 grams a day in women, something like 15 or 16 grams a day in men. But the UK average is about 14, 15 grams a day. The same level recommended for 2 to 5 year old children. Now the two standout things for me, based on my experience working with the population, the demographic that I work with, is that the magic combination for people's issues with their weight is that their fibre intake is ridiculously low and their fat intakes are very high. Those are the two standouts for me, right? As a nation, we are eating too much fat in the diet, not enough fruit and vegetables. If you just focused on adjusting those two things, like I'm going to eat less biscuits, less crisps, less sweets. Not sweets, ignore sweets. I didn't mean to say sweets. They just go in the list with those foods, don't they? But I'm going to eat less biscuits, less crisps, less cake. I'm going to cut down a little bit on the mayonnaise. We're going to use a little less butter. Things like that, right? Chocolate, the other big obvious one. We're going to slide those down a bit. Not cut them out, not remove them from the diet. We're going to dial those down a bit. And instead, we are going to replace those by adding another vegetable portion to my plate, by having a couple of pieces of fruit as a snack. Instead of having that hot fried breakfast in the morning or that breakfast roll, let's replace that with a few bowls of cereal each week. That's all it would take. That is all it would take for you to see your weight start to come down. Even if you change nothing else elsewhere, that one transition from a high-fat, high-calorie food to a lower-calorie, more filling, more nutritious food, your weight would start to come down over time just from making those simple swaps. Because that's what I see in the majority of people. So when I sit on day 7 and I look, I'm like today, I'll sit down on my computer, I'll have 4 or 5 new people to look at. They're 2 days of tracking. I know that all of them are going to have in common that they're not eating enough fibre. It's like one of the biggest problems, probably, maybe not in the world, because there are plenty of countries who have amazing diets. And if you look at their statistics for obesity, then it's nowhere near what the UK's is. Or America. America sets the standard, don't they? They don't know what vegetables are. Food noise. So why does this impact food noise? So another thing that's kind of prevalent in the UK is sugar. Now for me it's not as big a problem as they make out. That's just my opinion. I think fat's a much bigger issue. But sugar is still a problem. Highly processed foods. Sugary snacks, sugary sweets. Yeah, sugary drinks. It's getting better. But it's still an issue. Now, this is why for me, fibre is more of a problem than sugar. Because the fibre in our diet Do you know what? Let's imagine that processed foods don't exist. Let's imagine that it's not possible to buy foods and eat lots of sugar. Like Haribos don't exist, all that kind of stuff, right? Full sugar drinks, energy drinks, all of that. Let's imagine none of that exists, right? If we remove those foods, and if the only things that we could eat, if we wanted to eat something sweet, were things like fruit, vegetables, believe it or not, also contain plenty of sugar, and we still had high sugar intakes, like, imagine you replaced all the sweets and stuff, like all the kind of processed food in your diet with fruit, you would still have a very high sugar intake, but the difference would be you'd also have lots of fibre in your diet. So think of fibre as an energy regulator. If you think of it this way, like a lot of people live on sugar, and they will have something sugary, they'll get a buzz from it as their blood sugar spikes, they'll ride that high for 20-30 minutes, and then they'll come crashing down and they'll feel like crap. That's when the craving kicks in. What you've had is you have had a massive energy dump all in the one go. Like your body has thrown all this energy at you, and it said, right, and I know you need this energy sustained over the next few hours, but I'm just going to dump it all on you at once. You're going to burn through it in the next 20 minutes, and then it's going to be gone, and you're going to be left feeling like shit. And this is when cravings kick in. And cravings is where the food noise comes from. A lot of the food noise comes from. So now you've created a situation because you've got an imbalanced diet where you're not eating in a balanced way throughout the day, which leads to more intense cravings. And the thing is, when you have an if you're someone who has any underlying eating issues, right? If you use food to cope with stress, with your anxiety, with your emotions, with tiredness, with boredom, if you already have things that you're battling with, it doesn't make sense to then create more food noise because it amplifies those issues. So if you're already someone who, imagine having a really well-balanced diet, you don't think about food as often, and you're having a tough, stressful day, but it feels manageable, right? You don't eat in response to it. Yes, it's stressful. Yes, it's difficult. But you've not really felt the need strongly to turn to food. Now imagine you've got a super imbalanced diet. You've skipped breakfast. You had a couple of chocolate digestives mid-morning. You're now feeling like rubbish. You're hungry because those biscuits did nothing, but you're also crashing from the sugar from them. And now you're stressed. Those cravings, that food noise, that hunger, that appetite that you've created amplifies the feeling, the desire to go get something to eat to cope with that stress. So, back to the point. When you eat sugar, when you eat food without the presence of fibre in the diet, you are prone to bigger spikes in blood sugar. Now, don't get this mixed up with any of the bullshit faddy stuff that you hear about blood sugar spikes being bad and all the rest of it. This isn't what this is about. I'm trying to explain the point to you that you should be able to make it from the start of the day to the end of the day without feeling like you need a nap, without crashing, without falling asleep when you're driving, without nodding off at your desk, without feeling like you need sugar to boost you up, right? And you can't see it happening, but it's like you've got this little line graph inside of you, and it's spiking up when you eat, and it's crashing down when that energy's worn off 20 minutes later. Now, if you have a well-balanced diet, and you're eating plenty of fibre at every meal throughout the day, snacks in between, combined with everything else, like you're not just eating fibre, it's part of your meals. You're having vegetables, you're having salad, you're eating fruit for snacks, whatever else. Your energy levels shouldn't be spiking dramatically up and spiking dramatically down. They should be like a wave on the ocean, right? Up, down, up, down. Just a gentle wave up, a gentle wave down. And that's you providing your body with a much slower, steadier release of energy. So fibre acts as a regulator. It helps regulate the sugar. It helps hold it back and say, right, I know you want to dump in all at one time sugar, but fibre's here and fibre is going to hold you back. Fibre's like a bouncer at the door of a nightclub. Instead of everyone piling in through the door at the one time, the bouncer's got everybody slowed down, checking their IDs, patting them down, letting them in one at a time. That's what fibre's like, right? It's holding back the sugar, and it's not allowing it all to come crashing through at once. It's letting it through in a steady stream, and that means that you get to tap into your energy levels a lot better. You think better, you perform better, you behave better. Your food noise, I mean, certainly when you feel hungry, you're going to think about food, but you're not thinking about that next sugar fix to boost you up because you're crashing again. You're not already planning the snacks that you're going to eat at night because you're in a blood sugar kind of crash, and you're thinking about all the stuff you're going to eat in front of the TV. So a lot of the food, and this is why, again, coming back to it as being a faddy term, right? This is what the diet industry loves to do. It loves to find something perfectly normal, a self-created problem that is an easy fix. Fuck me, is it an easy fix? If I said, and this is the thing, it's such an easy fix, but people don't want to do it. People would rather be told, inject yourself with this medication and you won't have any food noise, rather than you need to eat more vegetables and you won't have any food noise. Instead of spending a few quid on vegetables, they'll happily spend hundreds of pounds on a medication if it means they don't have to eat vegetables. Sadly, that's just the state of the world. And this is why, for me, it is the faddy term of 2025, because it is being used and abused and capitalised on by people who want to sell you a solution to a problem that most people are creating for themselves because they choose not to have balanced diets, because they want to eat in a snacky way. They don't want to have meals. They don't want to put vegetables on their plate. They're not interested in having fruit for snacks. They want to have crisps and skinny bars and sweets and chocolate and biscuits, etc. So weight loss medication allows people to lose weight while bypassing a lot of the problems. That's all it does. You know, people, and if you read anything about the medication, it's like, oh yeah, and or the people on it, oh my God, for the first time in years, my food noise is gone. It's like, yeah, that's because you've not eaten any vegetables for years. You don't think of picking up a piece of fruit. You've had food noise for years because you've created it, because you've not given your body what it needs each day to function in a healthy, optimal way. And so your body has had to keep telling you that you need to keep eating more because you've not given it what it needs yet. It's like every time you eat, your body's sitting there watching the food come in and says, right, what are we getting? Have we got protein? Have we got fibre? Have we got any fats? What have we got? Where's the fibre? Where's the fibre? Fuck, no fibre. Right, tell them they're hungry again. Let's get that in. That's how cravings work, right? Well, I don't want to dive into this too much, right? There's two types of cravings. Physical, genuine cravings, which is the situation I described. Your body's waiting on you giving it something, you've not given it that thing, and so you get the craving. It's the same when, like, how many of you are on iron tablets, or you've been prescribed vitamin D, or vitamin B12, or whatever you've been prescribed, because your body told you that something wasn't right. You were feeling lightheaded, you were feeling fatigued. That's because somebody inside your body is going, right, what have we got here? When was the last time we had some iron? We don't get any iron. They don't eat any of that stuff. Okay, make them feel dizzy. Oh wait, they're going to stand up. Make them feel lightheaded. Let's make sure they get a trip to the doctors to get bloods done to find out all the stuff that they're not getting because they don't have a balanced diet. And then the doctor will give them a supplement and then that's us fine. I know that's a very simplistic, childlike explanation, but hopefully it helps get the point across, right? Food noise, a lot of it is created by you because you are not giving your body what it needs. And so your body has to communicate to you in a number of ways that something's missing. And then us, because many of us don't speak body. Oh God, oh my God, my body's asking me, I've got this craving. Okay, hang on, it's telling me that I've not got enough fibre in my diet. I need to eat more fruits and vegetables to help with that. I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to eat some sugar. That'll make me feel better. That'll get me an energy boost. And this is how it works. Like, it's not even a miscommunication. It's a misunderstanding. And this is why we need to get better at knowing ourselves. And how we feel after we eat a certain way. It happens quite a lot in the group, actually. So, like, the vast majority of people will get to their first check-in after following their figures and working on balancing their diet for 1 week. And I ask them all the positives that they're experiencing, right? Sleeping better, more energy, digestion's better, acid reflux is gone, heartburn is gone, indigestion's improved, bloating's disappeared. All these positives, I feel like I've got more energy. And it's like, yeah, well, that's because you're now giving your body what it needs. And the point that I try to make to everyone, and I don't ever take credit for this because I'm not doing anything. All I've done is showed a person how they should be eating to make themselves not just lose weight, but feel good. And it's like that improvement that you've felt, right? It's not an improvement. It's the absence of how shit you were making yourself feel. I've said this so many times before, right? There is very little that you can do to make yourself feel great with your diet. Right? Me, for example, I like to think that I now have a really well-balanced diet. And the food that I'm eating is what I need every day. My energy levels are great every day. Blah, blah, blah. I don't feel like there's much, without going to any extreme lengths and doing wacky things that I wouldn't want to do or keep up with, I can't make myself feel any better with food. But what I can do is make myself feel like absolute shit with food. When you have a well-balanced diet, there isn't very far to go up the way. But there is extremely far to go down the way. Basically meaning that once you do have that well-balanced diet, that's typically as good as it gets. You know, eating more vegetables, you get to a point where eating more vegetables doesn't make you feel better. Eating more protein doesn't make you feel better. Trying to balance your diet even more makes you feel better. We're talking fraction of a percent increments, if anything. However, if you decided to not eat protein, not eat fibre, eat loads of sugar, eat loads of fat, you can make yourself feel 1,000,000 times worse. So when people come to me and we get through that first week of working to the figures, using everything they've learned to balance their diet, the dramatic feeling that they're experiencing isn't because of anything that I've done, it's because of what they've stopped doing, if that makes sense. They've stopped neglecting their body, they've stopped neglecting their diet, they've stopped neglecting fruits and vegetables and protein. They're hydrating a bit more, they're eating more meals instead of snacking. So it's the absence of all that stuff and how much it drags them down that makes them feel like they're going through some dramatic improvement. And the point there was that when you start eating like that, right, and when you've eaten like that for months, and then you have a day or a weekend even where you went out for dinner on Friday night, and then you had a cooked breakfast on the Saturday morning, and then you had a Chinese on the Saturday night, and you kind of start neglecting those important things again, which is fine. We all do that from time to time. The problem is that tends to be what people do the majority of the time instead of some of the time. But you will have those moments where you are eating a lot better most of the time, but you have these brief moments in time, these weekends where you do kind of go back to eating perhaps how you did before, which again is absolutely fine. It's okay for it to happen from time to time. We just don't want it to be a daily occurrence like it was in the past. That was part of the problem. But when you go through those moments where you know that you've not had many vegetables, you've not had much protein, you've been snacking a bit more than usual, you've had more... Oh, I'm picking a tick off the dog's face. You've had more sweets than usual, etc. and you go, God, I really feel that. I get it quite a lot on check-ins. You know, people will check in and say, oh, I had a big greasy takeaway on Saturday night and I felt awful after it. It's like, yeah, because you're not used to eating like that anymore. And it's one of those things that starts to put them off. You know, instead of takeaways being something that they got super excited about and wanted to do all the time, every night, it now becomes a rare occurrence, and that's the level that we want to get to. Anyway, there are lots of people walking their dogs now, so I need to wrap this up. I hope that's been helpful, but food noise. Food noise. You are going to be hearing that word, that term,